So welcome everybody to our Nomasis webinar. My name is Tiziano and I'm pleased to introduce to you Yasin and Sasha from Lookout, who will be presenting today. Today's webinar is about exclusive threat briefing, why mobile device management is not enough. And the session lasts about 25 minutes. And please notice that the webinar will be recorded and during the presentation, your microphones will be set to mute. You may pose questions during the session through the chat function to the host, and the questions will then be answered by Yasin and Sasha at the end of the session. Now I'd like to hand over, so please start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Tiziano.
Thank you.
Great. So, next slide, please. Just some words about us, who we are and what we are doing. So my name is Yasin. I'm based in Munich in Germany. I'm Channel Director for Central Europe and mainly responsible for partners, distributors, and our carrier partners in that region. And today, my part is pretty short. We have our mobile security expert here together with me with a global role. He will introduce himself and then we can continue with the slides.
Thanks, Yasin. Yeah, my name is Sasha. I'm also based like Yasin in Germany with Lookout for a couple of years already. And as he said, I'm responsible on a global level for anything around MSP and MSSPs. So not direct resale business, but yeah, service bundling of Lookout products. So Yasin, you can continue on that slide.
Yes. So just think about that. So your phone knows more about you than anyone else. What kind of information is that? So basically the phone knows who are your close friends, who is your family, who is the shop where you are preferred to buy from, where you are, basically your geolocation, your contacts. So basically everything around that, what you are doing, where you are, and how you are as a person. We are discussing quite often about features, about functions, about stuff that we can cover, or any kind of new releases of features. But at the end of the day, anyone should be aware that for the bad guys, for the hackers, it's much more lucrative to hack your phone than any kind of other device, because he's getting basically all that information from you. And in the worst case, you can just switch on your microphone and listen what is happening in your room. So just think about that, and then you will basically see maybe the things a little bit different than currently, because we have still the feeling that not in the Swiss market, not also in the German market, but in other countries, that mobile security is still a nice to have, and it's not a necessary tool. Therefore, yeah, the activity level currently is super high, related to the political situations, related to a lot of other impacts around the world. But it's super lucrative on the flip side as well. We have a couple of slides related to that. We have some examples, but Sasha will tell you a bit more around that. Next slide, please. About Lookout, who we are. So we are basically a mobile security company founded 15 years ago, around about 15 years ago, in San Francisco, Silicon Valley startup, founded by three founders. These three guys are still in the company. The idea was basically to secure the mobile devices. They started with an Android app, and then they continued with an iOS application. And 15 years later, we have a data set of more than 220 millions of devices secured. So this number is huge. We have also 300 millions of apps in our data corpus, so we are basically aware about any kind of app out there, not just applications which are currently officially released in the Apple App Store or in the Android App Store, also applications from third-party app stores. On top of that, of course, we are based on artificial intelligence. We have a threat intel team, I would say mainly manpower, people who are focused on finding threats. Two of these threats are part of the demo session today, where we are basically analyzing the new modern kill chain. And this is basically something that is real. So We published one of them recently, and the other one is a bit older, but it's the real world. Our second pillar is SSE, so cloud security, where we have basically 3 products in one console. This is not part of the story today, but just for you to know, we have a secure web gateway, a CASP, and a ZTNA pre-built into one console with a lot of nice functions and features. So therefore, we are a mobile security and a cloud security company, of course, with a focus of security in general. Next slide.
Right. I will take over again. Thank you, Yasin. Yeah, so let's describe now what is maybe the difference and the differentiator when it comes to MDM, so mobile device management, and stuff like a mobile endpoint detection and response solution like Lookout is offering. And yeah, I think people out there believing sometimes that an MDM brings security to the table, but it's not the right conclusion. An MDM can limit functionalities and restrict capabilities on a device, which is interpreted like security functions. So for an example, if you decline end users application installations of any kind of third-party resources like Google Play Store or Apple App Store, this didn't mean security. It's just a restriction of installing maybe a malicious application. Same applies maybe for web and content or for device security. So you can just restrict, for an example, joining unsafe networks or maybe installing a root CA, but in the end, it's just a restriction. It has nothing to do with any kind of security threats or scanning mechanisms. What will Lookout do as a mobile EDR player? We start looking, for an example, at web and content. Is there any kind of phishing attempt? On the application side, is maybe any kind of application that you install to your device even malicious or either vulnerable? That means maybe an outdated variant of Google Chrome. For networks, if we look at hotspots out there, you traveling and your destination is reachable through an airport, so you went to the Starbucks at the airport and joining their public Wi-Fi, maybe a man-in-the-middle attack occurs, and Lookout will notice that and will inform the end user and even the administrator. Same applies to device. We can identify and detect also sophisticated kinds of roots or jailbreaks or any kind of privilege escalations. Yeah, so everything marked as red here is completely not protected or restricted by an MDM. Anything that is marked or highlighted as amber is partially protected, and everything that is green is for sure protected by an MDM as well. But when it comes to, for example, out-of-date OS and even ASPL on Android, we, as you learned before from Yasin, we have the telemetry data of that 220 million devices. So that means we can provide automatic updates or automatic levels of patching. So on the fragmentation on Android can be huge, and we have the data behind the scenes to provide you the information if for that specific device, if there's an update available or not. So let's talk about how it looks when it comes to stores and what kind of risk was introduced with 17.4 of iOS. So there is a thing called Digital Markets Act, DMA in Europe, and Apple was forced by the European Union to introduce third-party app stores in iOS 17.4. Or with the release of iOS 17.4, Apple reacted to the push by the European Union to open up their ecosystem. So from in the past, how it was looking on iOS, you could install apps from the Apple App Store, and Apple received 30% on each purchase, even for in-house purchases and so on. But the good thing was Apple was hosting the store, the Apple App Store. They did pre-checks, and I would say the Apple App Store is a kind of a good resource in terms of pre-scanning of apps. Now with any kind of third-party store, the risk and the limitation is not present anymore. So it could be the case that the whatever store name is in the future is not as good in pre-checks, and users can easily install malicious variants of a legitimate app. Yeah, if we speak about 17.4 and even 16.7.6, which are the most recent updates on iOS, we see, for an example, again, one major CVE that was patched, and there were even more, two more critical updates that were patched in that release. So that shows the importance for anyone out there to react on those security fixes and install them on as much as possible devices, because yeah, any kind of open vulnerability can be easily used by attackers. How an attack will look like in most cases. So first of all, hackers will look at any kind of recon. So I will look for Yazin in the World Wide Web, and I identified him as maybe my recon. So I do some social media research on him, some social engineering around him on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Insta, whatever, where I can find him. And if that gives me some information around him, I try to attack him with a social engineering campaign. So maybe I noticed that he is interested in any kind of motor cycling, like maybe he's interested in old Vespa. So I would use that to social engineering an SMS message and attack him through that. If he clicks on that SMS, for an example, I can gain initial access. With that initial access, mostly if there's a second factor authentication, I prompt for that as well. And if that goes through, the data theft can start. And yeah, in the end, the extortion is the final piece of the kill chain. How a lookout can help, and what are the entry points? So we learned before, unsecured networks or hotspots can be used, and any end user likes to use the fastest connection. I think nowadays with 5G and unlimited data plans or even high data plans, for example, me, when I'm traveling, I stick to my 5G normally. I just switch over to any kind of Wi-Fi if 5G coverage is limited, and then it could be a risk. From an application perspective, Yazin explained it in the beginning, there's always, if it's not a super restricted corporate phone, there's always a big mix of personal and corporate applications, which makes sense on any kind of modern OS like iOS and Google Android. You have containerization. That means they can't share any kind of information without prompting the end user to getting permissions for that. So data separation is part of the OS anyway. So it makes sense that the end user can use that mix. Side-loaded or harmful apps, I told it or explained it before. Third-party stores will be allowed since iOS 17.4, and side loading for enterprises was always, at least in a restricted way, possible even on iOS. Web and content, this is the most common attack on mobile devices. It's so much easier to remotely attack someone through iMessage, through WhatsApp, even through email, any kind of social media, instead of having an end user joining a network, connecting to a cable, whatever it is. So any kind of modern approach will follow that web and content attack through web content or even through QR codes. So end user scanning maybe a QR code at an entrance area that could be pointing to a risky website. And devices, we spoke about it already. So Lookout Mobile EDR will give the administrators a good overview, and the end users a super simple, lightweight app that shows you any kind of risk if they appear. Other than that, there's no activities for the end user to do, so you don't have to press any scan button. Everything is happening in the background and fully automated. Phishing detection, for example. In that case, there's a DHL message. The end user clicks on that message, and now you see Lookout for Work notification. The phishing attempt was blocked. So this is a super simple explanation how we can protect end users, because the website was not visible. It was just a white page within Safari. And nice to know, 85% of phishing on mobiles occur outside of email. So if you have already something in place on your Exchange server, whatever it could be, that will just cover those 15%, but not the 85% that hackers are currently using. Give me just a second. Let's speak about malware. We see a huge increase year over year when it comes to malware detection, and yeah, malware will be most likely not always from the regular stores, because Google and Apple doing a great job in pre-scanning apps, but sometimes there will be even malicious variants, or sometimes companies that are acquiring another company and that turn over an application maybe to a malicious variant of it, and so on. So this is how it works. Lookout is scanning the operating system and see as soon as any malicious variant is installed, and will inform the end user about it. That is a great example that attackers have modernized their behavior. So they try to, sometimes even if it's a super sophisticated attack, hide themselves. So there will no application visible that is an indicator of compromise. They normally get around restrictions. So that means if the file system is super containerized and apps are isolated, they try to get full device compromises. Yeah, that looks like a jailbreak or a root to get all of your data and make that financial destruction in the end, even with a regular ransomware attack. So let's talk about maybe one example. There was a famous attack through Scattered Spider. And there are two organizations in the end that are heavily affected by that. It was Caesars Entertainment and MGM. Both were, the entry point on both were a mobile device. And in the end, the ransomware was the second step. So both environments were completely infected with ransomware. So Caesars Entertainment and MGM can't operate as usual. That means from checking into the hotel group in Vegas, for an example, in Caesars and Caesars hotel, you can't do the check-in because that was a digital process. Then you can't hop into the elevator, because for the elevator you need your card that grants you access to the level or floor where your hotel room is located, and even gambling was not possible. So there was a massive disruption of their service or their regular behavior. MGM paid the fee, which was around about 20 million US dollars, and Caesars Entertainment didn't do that, and they ended up with around about 100 million that they lost until they recovered the data and they operated it again as usual. So yeah, that could be an outcome if mobile devices are not protected. Let's give you another example of such a thing like Scarlet Spider. We released that blog article 2 weeks ago, and the malware is called Crypto Chameleon. And what Crypto Chameleon is doing, they are fooling end users in single sign-on domains. For an example, one of the targets of Crypto Chameleon was FCC, which is a company in US, or more like a regulator when it comes to television and radio services there. Their regular domain is fcc.okta.com. And in that case, it was fcc-okta.com. So for end users, not straight away a warning alert because it looks completely similar. And if what was happening, yeah, for an example, Mike Jones received that prompt from that domain, and it looks like that. Yeah, smart way here. First of all, the first picture is a capture. That means automated crawlers can't see the phishing kit behind that domain. So that's super smart from a hacking perspective because yeah, automatic detections are mostly not capable of doing the capture, so they will fail. Behind the capture, there's a regular looking like Okta login page with username and password. You see then if you type in that information, please wait a second, and then you see one more step, and it prompts you for your second factor authentication tool, which is normally the case when you use any kind of single sign-on mechanism. Yeah, what we do, we offer automated protection against these kind of attacks because we're looking for lookalike phishing attacks like fcc-okta.com instead of .dot. So we see the registration of those DNS servers, and we can proactively warn and inform lookout customers even before maybe attacks are occurring on those domains. Yeah, what are the key takeaways? The success of Scarlet Spider and even Crypto Chameleon will definitely lead into more copycats of those attacks. So I would mostly, I'm not surprised if one of those will mostly target Azure Active Directory as next and not Okta customers because, yeah, Azure population is huge. Cyber crime groups are branching out. Modern phishing kits are built to target mobile devices because of the device role. So what that means is, I would say mostly in 90% of all cases, the second factor authentication token is part of your smartphone. It's sitting there as a software, like an app, Okta Verify, Microsoft Authenticator, whatever it could be. A string of phishing and social engineering is becoming the norm because regular attacks will fail, and end users are normally educated and trained on that. And cybercrime groups are hiring native English-speaking speakers that also sound like US professionals. Because, yeah, if there's maybe someone calling you, that's also one way of fooling someone. So that is the reasoning why that could be important. For the second step, if you maybe respond to that SMS and they're offering you to verify through a phone call, which is the case in both attack scenarios, that's the reasoning for number 5. How can Lookout help? We offering you dedicated mobile phishing risk assessments, so we can do a campaign where you define how the landing page is looking like, which kind of information or which kind of test you like to achieve. Is it just click rates? Do you really like to see if they will put in username and password? which we will not collect. But yeah, there are many options how we can support you and drive some statistics around the mobile risk. Yeah, how Lookout can help. We definitely offer best of breed phishing and content protection to protect your mobile device. We're offering threat intelligence services, which give you more insight into maybe industry specific attack vectors. And we have, last but not least, a forensic service capability. Yeah, if you believe there's maybe someone that sophisticated tries to attack one of my C-levels, for an example, then we help you with that forensic service. Yeah, that case, I would hand it back over to Yasin maybe to.
Thank you very much. So yeah, if you are interested in that awareness campaign, then feel free to reach out to the Nomasis team. They can help you on that. It doesn't matter if you want to have the regular phishing campaign, the awareness campaign with the click, or if you want to have another one with the credential theft, just recently released. So therefore, just come back to the collect from Nomasis. In any other cases, we have here in that slide deck a lot of other resources where you can find a lot of information around that, what we are doing, our recent findings. So there is a Lookout threat-led site where you can get some insights about the findings. There is a landscape report from last year where we have identified a lot of different threats in different areas that Sasha has just introduced. And the last finding with the crypto chameleon, that was a big one. And what Sasha has shown here was the real the real site, basically the real login or fake login page from Okta. So therefore, a lot of insights around that, and that's very typical for that, what is currently happening. So the bad guys are starting with mobile and then continuing with ransomware or some other crazy stuff. Next slide. Yeah, that was it in 30 minutes. And I think now I can give over to you, Tiziano, and open up for questions.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Yasin and Sasha, for giving us this overview about this very interesting topic. I did not receive any questions during your speech. So if you want, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. And if there are no further questions at the moment, we can end the webinar at this point. But of course, if you have any further questions afterwards, yeah, you can please you can contact Nomasis at any time. And if there are no questions, I would say thank you all for joining. Thank you very much, Sasha and Yasin, for this very interesting presentation. And have a nice day and hope see you next time.
Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.